You've probably heard the idea that if you're just consistent enough on YouTube, you will grow. However, for the past 12 months, I've been really consistent on YouTube, posting a lot of content. And in my experience, consistency actually isn't as important of a metric as you think it might be. Let me tell you a bit more about my story. So at the start of this year, I went full time as a content creator, and I thought if I'm just really consistent and I post enough content, then inevitably I'll grow really fast, right? So I started posting 3 videos a day across 3 different platforms, and I did this religiously for about 3 months straight without a single day missed. And what happened was not growth, but I kind of entered this negative spiral downwards that had essentially for me about 5 different levels. The first level was I started to lose my creativity because everything started to become about the grind. Everything started to become about pumping out that next set of videos for the next day, for the next week. It essentially just became a chore for me, and I wasn't really enjoying it, and therefore started to lose creativity. Following directly on from that, like I said, I started to lose the enjoyment of the process. What was once a fun hobby that I did on the side when I came home from my full-time job started to feel like something that I was tied to, that I had to do. But was something that was just kind of a drag. The third thing that happened was that my content quality started to drop, or at the very least, it stagnated, and I wasn't really improving my content quality. And a big part of the reason for this was I just didn't have the time, because I was pumping out so much content and I was so set on keeping that consistent schedule. I just didn't have time in my day to improve or to learn or to try new things. This then led to repetitive content where I would often make the same things week in and week out. And then last but not least, the worst thing of all was I burnt out. And I should have seen it coming. Like, I've burnt out before in other areas, but I did. And for a couple of weeks, I was just exhausted. I was hating it and I just needed a break. And so what was the end result of me being super consistent, pumping out lots of content, all that extra effort compared to what I was doing before I went full time? Well, my growth online improved a tiny bit. And so I started to question, is this consistency and just pumping out quantity of content really going to make me grow? And as I thought about it, there were essentially 3 different things that I did to get me out of this rut. So the first step that I took was essentially to make my goals more realistic. And for me, this essentially meant posting less. And honestly, this freaked me out. Even though the evidence was kind of showing that just posting lots of content wasn't going to make me grow, I still had this belief that I just still needed to keep doing that. But one thing that actually really helped me to take the step to post less was to take a step back and really think about different platforms that I was posting on and what I was actually gaining from that. So for example, I was spending about 20 to 25% of my time creating and posting content on Instagram. However, I would say I was probably making next to no money from Instagram. And so when I realized that, I thought, if I stop posting to Instagram today, is anything really going to change drastically? And when I realized the answer was probably not, I just stopped posting to Instagram and started focusing all of my attention to YouTube. And this honestly was like a huge breath of fresh air, because it just took so much pressure off, just practically in terms of my weekly schedule. So this in turn essentially led to step 2, which was to try and prioritize quality over quantity. And this is still an area that I'm improving in, but I started to spend more time actually researching video concepts, spending more time on my titles and thumbnails. And I also started to actually begin analyzing my content to see what was working and what wasn't working, which I just didn't have time for before that. And I have definitely found, as I've started to try and prioritize quality, my content has performed better, which ironically has actually led to more growth. And then those 2 steps essentially led to the final and most important step. And so this final step for me essentially was just rekindling my passion for content creation. Because if there's one thing I've learned about being a full-time content creator in the past year, is that you have to make it sustainable. Relying on consistency and sheer output just isn't sustainable. And you really have to find that reason why you're wanting to make content in the first place. And that's definitely what I lost. Because I was so focused on growth, I just did the thing that I thought would get me there the fastest, rather than just slowing down, taking my time, and focusing on what I actually thought was more important. Which for me is basically being able to help just 1 or 2 people, even in just really simple ways. I've definitely found that when I've been most driven by essentially selfish things like money or freedom of time, those are the times when I've been most driven to just get growth, because growth equals financial freedom, right? But I found those things just aren't as satisfying as I always think and hope they will be. And the things that really satisfy me, that really make me feel fulfilled, is when I get those comments from people saying, thank you so much for this, this really helped me. Or even when I catch up with friends who are just just getting started in content creation, I'm able to give them a bit of a hand. It makes me feel so good that I'm actually making some small difference in someone else's life. And this for me just takes the pressure off growing really quickly, because it's not about making a lot of growth. It's not about making a lot of money, because the reality is I'm making enough money to live on, and I've got the most flexible schedule I've ever had in my entire life. So I'm trying to shift my metrics more away from just growth and numbers towards who am I actually helping and making a difference in their life. And once these steps are in place, you get all the benefits. So your content quality will improve. You'll get increased viewer satisfaction. Your creativity will increase. You won't get as burnt out because you'll be more sustainable. You'll enjoy the process of actually making videos more. Ironically, you will also start to see more growth. And most of all, it'll be the most personally fulfilling. So I really hope that was helpful to someone. If you're interested in more of these types of videos, then check out this video here where I talk about what I would do if I started from scratch again. Other than that, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you very soon in the next video.